Alright, welcome back, you beautiful souls. Thank you guys so much for the 300 subs, and sorry for those who have already for those who have commented, but there's a quirk that I've really been wanting to do a what if Deku on it, and I just needed something that would kind of set it apart from other YouTube what ifers that have done this. And someone commented something in the 300 sub special that I found very interesting, and a few other people have suggested this. But what if Deku was the only guy with a quirk? I've had another person suggest what if Deku was the only guy born with a quirk? Um, what if Deku has had a copy type quirk? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull those ideas together and do my own thing with it. Now there is a few other YouTubers that have done what if Deku had a copy quirk. I only know of two, and I will later in the next episode of this series, I will have looked their names up and I will show their profiles on the video so that way you can look them up and go subscribe to them. There has been a few other YouTubers that have done what if Deku was the only male with a quirk too, so I will also get their information and link it in the next video. So that being said, let's get into this. Okay, so unlike in the normal My Hero Academia, only women are born with the quirk gene. It's just like in the real world, there's actually a genetic allele that is passed down through women, and only women have it. And it's a one gene that almost every woman on the planet has, and it's not the XY chromosomes. No, it's actually a specific allele gene. So this is where I'm going to say that this happened. So that gene kind of evolved into the quirk gene. So it can only be passed down mother to daughter. So that's how this world's going to be operating. Now, there is a few quirks. If you, and I'm not going to spoil the other quirks that do exist that have changed hands, but everyone can already assume that the nature of already knows all for one's quirk and one for all can be passed to someone else just by the nature. The reason why all for one can be passed to someone is just because of the nature of all for one, where he can take and give people quirks. Like he can steal someone's quirk and then give them another quirk, and it can be any quirk that he himself already has. So in theoretically he could give someone his own quirk. Now, would it be his quirk or would it be a duplicated version is kind of debated if two instances of all for one could exist. Um, and just and also there's theories out there if someone who had a copy quirk, like Monoma got one for all, that he could theoretically pass down one for all to multiple people. So this is like I'm pulling information from a bunch of different places to create this what if special. And if you guys haven't already guessed what it is just by all the information I just laid on you, this is going to be what if Deku was born with a copy quirk in a world where only women have quirks. or females have quirks. Um, so that being said, let's get into our story after all the backstory on this world. So Inko and Hasashi meet just like in canon and everything, but in this Hasashi doesn't have a quirk, only Inko does. And because I'm gonna say because only women have quirks, their quirks are a little like slightly stronger, not like by much. I would say like 5 or 10% more powerful than in canon, just because women have like quirks and everything. They are like they train and everything, and women can go to special academies and stuff like the like quirks that are unique or powerful and everything. They do get scouted into like private schools, more so in like certain areas of the world. So Inko and Hasashi, like they meet each other, they fall in love, they get married, a few years pass, and they get pregnant. And they're both excited that they're going to have their first child, but then they're saddened a little bit when they find out the sex of their baby is male. So Inko's a little upset, but she's like, this is still my baby, and I'm going to treat him just like any others." But they may in the future try for a little girl, because Inko does want a baby that has a quirk. And she's getting that, but because in her mind, they know, like they only know, they don't know of any males that have ever had a quirk. So all the characters in My Hero Academia that have quirks are going to be female. And so, like the water hose, like Koda's parents and everything, that like Koda's going to be female too, because he's going to inherit his mother's quirk, and her like Koda's mother's quirk is going to be a fusion of Koda's original parents' quirks, so it's going to be stronger. So in any instances where both parents had quirks, their quirks are going to be stronger. So in this, basically, a little bit of spoiler for later, but basically Todoroki's endeavor is going to be female, and his mother is going to come from, or no, scratch that. We're not going to make it where they're stronger, and we'll have another way of doing it. And Todoroki's mother is going to be the dad. So Todoroki does inherit. So basically, males can pass on a quirk, but they themselves can never develop a quirk. Basically, when a boy is born, their children can be born with their grandparents' quirk, or they will have their mother's quirk. So Todoroki is one of the special cases where she will develop both her grandparents' quirk and her mother's quirk, Endeavor's quirk. So this is going to make Todoroki a little bit better. And the same thing with kind of like with Bakugo. Bakugo, no, he'll just manifest a higher evolved version of his mother's quirk, because his mother's quirk is literally just to sweat nitroglycerin, and Todoroki got the being able to ignite that and create explosions from his dad. So when Deku's born, so we skip to 9 months later. Deku is Izuku is born, and when he starts crying, things start floating around the room. And they initially think this is Inko's quirk because they do know what her quirk is and everything. And I want to say they do have like a doctor that works at the hospital that has a quirk, and her quirk is that she can read someone else's quirk. Just so I can progress this and we don't run into a situation where Deku will have like a fuck ton of quirks and stuff like that. But I'm actually going to set a limit to this. So they have washed up Izuku, and like they've have him in the room with Inko, and they're wanting to keep her own observation because to their knowledge they think her quirk went a little out of wire and they want to make sure she's okay. So the doctor who is going to be seeing her to give her final checkup and to see if she's all right to go home. And so she has been in the hospital for about a week now, and Izuku has already been cleared through nurses because when they do handle babies in the hospital, when they're being born, they're wearing gloves, and then when they're not, they seldom do I think it's now like they have to wear non-allergenic gloves because of certain health risks and stuff, that like bacterium that could be on people's hands even after you wash, just basically making it as sterile or as safe for babies. But I'm not sure if that's everywhere in the world, but we're going to say that they have systems set up to where they don't come in skin-to-skin contact with the babies, and that's or it's where Izuku, but basically like all the a lot of the nurses and stuff that have handled Izuku are males, and some of the doctors that are there are also males. But they do have like female doctors and nurses that have quirks. So one of the doctor, like I said, will have a quirk that she can read other people's quirks. So she comes into the room and she looks at Inko, and it says God, is it it would be telekinetic. And then she's like going over the charts with Ingo, saying, well, your blood works in fine, and it doesn't seem like your quirk like went haywire and everything. And then when Inko goes to pick up Izuku, because like he started to cry a little bit, and the doctor looks at him, and then she basically like falls out of, like, goes, what the fuck, like sitting there and falls out of the chair. And Inko's like, what's wrong, doctor? And she's like, ma'am, your chart said that you had a son, but... And Inko's like, what's wrong? And the doctor's like, well, I don't know how to tell you this, man, but your son has a quirk. And Inko's like, what do you mean? Only females can have quirks. And Inko is shocked by this, and the doctor is even more shocked because she's a medical professional, and this is unheard unheard of at all in the entirety of the world. There were, if you check like the black market and stuff like that, there are males with quirks, but they didn't initially have quirks. They were guys that All For One gave quirks to. But it's basically unheard of. And the guys that do have quirks are in the shadows. Like, people won't know they exist. Because if you've watched the latest episode of My Hero Academia, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So she's like, after she takes like a few seconds and composes herself, and then she really looks at Izuku. Because how her quirk works is she can glance at someone and just catch a glimpse of like what their quirk is, but then she can look at it and really see what type of quirk it is. You know, basically it gives like in her eyes she has like a little heads up display that kind of like happens. It says quirk, type, and then ability. So it's saying, she's like, well, I don't know, this is crazy, but your son has a copy quirk, and apparently it's a perfect copy quirk? Wait a minute. Man, your quirk is telekinesis, right? And Inko's like, yeah, and she's like, your son may have copied your quirk. And from what was described in the birthing room, for lack of better words, that may have been him. And Inka's like, are you sure about this? And she's like, she turns to Inko and she says, I am very certain that your son has a quirk, like, or my quirk isn't, it's fucked up, kinda. So this is going, yes, in this, Izuku is going to be OP as fuck. And he's going to be popular. So, just because he's a male with a quirk, most people won't, like, they will keep this, like, under wraps so that, like, the doctor that sees this, like, tells Inko, it's like, we need to keep this secret, but I do need to contact a few people so that we can get some protection or training for this young man, because the only other case that they know about a male having a quirk, he was a supervillain, like a little over 100 years ago. And that's like the only instance that they know of. And so it's like, in their time, it's unheard of. Like, males just simply don't have quirks. And the only other known case of it, the guy became a supervillain. But unbeknownst to everyone in the world, that person was created by One for All, or All for One. Basically a guy that she had given a quirk to, who just went on a fucking killing spree. Basically killing a bunch of freaking people. And this has been since long forgotten. Now, I did say, like, Izuku will be the only male in this that has a quirk, but he'll be the only He'll be the only male that was born with a quirk that he didn't get from someone else. So the doctor basically calls like security, calls the lead doctor of the hospital up and explains the situation. They come down and they do test a little bit. They do some tests. Like they keep like blood and everything. He's not. He's missing the extra joint, and so in this world, like men who are born without the extra joint do have a passive quirk gene that they can pass on to their offspring, and it would only manifest if like the quirk gene only manifests if the person is female. So Izuku is he was born with an extremely strong quirk, and so his limit for now will be 6 quirks. Like he can perfectly copy 6 quirks. So he grows. First few years of his life, he's been under constant supervision by government officials, and then eventually they find out that he's not he grows up knowing that he has a quirk, but he's been told like his whole life that he should hide, like he shouldn't let people know because it could cause mass hysteria, and there's people out there that would potentially want to hurt him. And so once Izuku gets a little bit older, he's introduced to a few pro heroes that are in the neighborhood that Inko and Hasashi live in, and they've been getting help by the government because the government there is like classified government documents that detail like this this villain that existed 100 years ago that went on a murder spree, and the general public has long since forgotten this, and only like the really old the old people like remember this, and when they say something about it, they're like, "Oh, you're just a crazy old person," is what the rest of society they push it aside. It's not really. It's an urban legend that a male had a quirk and everything. So Izuku has grown up in the environment of knowing he has a quirk, and he has worked on using his mother's quirk. And then when Bakugo, Katsuki, and hold on one minute, I've got to check something. Alright, sorry about that, guys. About that interruption, but I really wanted to look this up. But it is what I thought. Katsuki is a unisex name in Japanese culture. It's just the meaning of it slightly changes depending on if it's a masculine or feminine. And the changes, in my opinion, not really worth mentioning. So it will still be Katsuki Bakugo. And so when Katsuki, her quirk manifests, everyone is freaking out, is like flipping out because like she has a very flashy quirk, and eventually after her quirk manifests, she does make skin contact with Izuku, and I will say this is when she is picking on a little girl that has a very weak quirk and everything. And Izuku basically, like in canon, comes up and is like, Kachan, if you don't stop, I won't ever forgive you. And Katsuki, being the arrogant little brat she is like, what are you gonna do about it, boy? Boys don't have quirks and everything. And so Katsuki goes in and goes to like do an explosion. Izuku kind of like catches her hand and then comes back with his own explosion. And this just absolutely freaks those all the four other children there besides Izuku out. Like they're like, what the fuck? Like they're basically thinking in like little kid like minds like, did we just see that? And Katsuki just kind of takes a step back and she's like, you're a freaking monster, you're a monster, Izuku, Izuku, you're a monster, and like runs away. And so the other kids' parents think like their kids are crazy, that they're just being little kids with imagination. But Mitsuki's not like that. She basically calls Inko up and, like in other what ifs, like majority besides like four that I have planned out, Mitsuki and Inko will be friends. So Mitsuki would know about Izuku's quirk just from the nature of being around their family, just through conversations that they would have. But she would know that this is like secret and she shouldn't talk about it at all. So when Katsuki like tells her mom that Izuku has a quirk, like how can she asks her mom's like, mom, can boys have quirks? And Mitsuki's like, no, sweet, don't be silly, sweetie. Like boys can't have quirks. And then um Katsuki's like, but mom, Izuku has the same quirk that I have. And then Mitsuki's like thinking like, crap. Okay, well, this was eventually going to happen with them two hanging out. So I guess she calls Inko up and she explains like what had happened. And Inko like asks Izuku's like, what did you do today? Weren't you supposed to like keep your quirk under wraps? And you weren't, and you weren't wearing your gloves like you're supposed to wear like your gloves. So Izuku is like, mom, but I got tired of wearing those things, like, and especially when it's hot out, I get all icky. And Inko like basically scolds Izuku a little bit and goes on to explain, sweetie, like you need to wear those things so that we can keep you safe. If people find out that you can copy their quirks, and then use them just as they would be able to use them at the same time. So basically, when Izuku copies someone's quirk, he gains knowledge on how to activate their quirk. So his mother's quirk's a little different. He didn't have full control over it yet, and he's slowly getting Izuku will eventually learn how to like control his copy quirk to where he can trust someone and not just automatically copy their quirk. Because I think Monoma in the original can touch people and not actually copy their quirk, but he had to learn how to do that. if I'm mistaken, you guys can totally rip into me about it. But I think that's how Monema's quirk works, where in order for him to copy someone, he does have to make skin-to-skin contact, but he can touch someone and not copy the quirk if he doesn't want to. Like, from my understanding, he has to want to copy their quirk for his quirk to activate and stuff like that. So unlike Monoma and Canon, Izuku in this can't control that. It's just always on. Until eventually he gets like the 6 quirks, but he's been like basically sheltered, and Izuku like now has 3 quirks technically, because he has Katsuki's quirk, which is explosions, which is a fusion in canon of his parents' quirk. So he will start sweating nitroglycerin, and he can ignite the nitroglycerin that he sweats to create explosions like Katsuki does. So he's like, Mitsuki does bring Katsuki over to the Midoriya's home, and they sit down with both Katsuki and Izuku and sit down and explain to them about like they need to keep this hush hush, and the other parents of the kids that were there just don't believe their kids. They think it's just like it's the Bakugo kid's quirk, like she must have did something and it looked like he's like the boy they were talking about did it, but they're thinking it's Katsuki that did it. So Minsky and Inko explain to their kids, like together, that Izuku does have a quirk and he should and they tell Katsuki she shouldn't like say that he has a quirk and stuff like that, which isn't going to work out too well considering how Izuku's quirk works. So they really do get it, and so with this part coming up on 7 minutes, and the other part coming up was like 23 minutes. I can go a little bit more. I can do a few more. So where we're at, Izuku has 3 quirks. He has his mother's quirk, he has Katsuki's quirk, and he has his copy quirk. And as of right now, his copy quirk is always on. He can't turn it off, like Monoma Canon. And if that's not right, you guys can tell me down below. So that being said, there are a few other parts that I'm scripting now for this, and I will get them released as soon as possible. There's a few other ideas that will make better sense in part 1. So this was part 0, and what I like to do in part 0 is set up the world that my what ifs are in. So anytime in future videos that you'll see something titled part 0, that is just me setting up the world for the what if. So we are going to end this part here, and I will see you beautiful souls in the next video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.